the most diverse city in the Commonwealth with more than 63 languages spoken, directly from Malden, Massachusetts. This is Culture Matters.
Cultura importa.
La cultura importa.
摩顿市关注文化。
Culture Matters in Malden.
I am Osa Schwab, host of this episode, a conversation with musicians Greg Cherone and Robert Clapp Jr. about a rock opera adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth that they and John Betancourt recently released.
The plot is in motion, thanks to a most efficient wife. Shall I seize the moment? Shall I myself bear the knife? If the deed be done, it would have to be swift. Back and forth, these pros and cons, my better judgment shifts. This kind of passion is a dangerous thing. I am his kinsman first, cousin of a good and worthy rightful king. Were those wayward sisters just imaginings? Come what come may.
Well, Greg and Robert, thank you so much for being here on Culture Matters in Malden, sharing a bit about this wonderful creation, the rock opera Macbeth.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're thrilled to be here. I do want to mention real quick, and that is that John Betancourt, who's not here tonight, is one of the co-creators. And he also was involved in the music, and I just wanted to mention him, John Betancourt.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So before we dive into talking about the inspiration and the journey of creating this rock opera, I wonder if you could share a little bit about who you are and your connection to Malden, and maybe a little bit about your musical journey.
Do you want to start?
Sure, I'll go first. I'm Greg Cherone, and I was born and raised in Malden. I lived most of my life in Malden. I still do. And I've been involved in music for many years. I was in a band many years ago, a couple of acoustic duos.
What instruments do you play?
Well, I sing.
Sing,
So
okay.
the voice would be the instrument, or the microphone in this case. As Sinatra would say, the microphone was his instrument. So
Nice.
there you have it.
Cool.
He's
Thank
also
you.
a melody extraordinaire, so he comes up with wonderful melodies in the songs we've worked on together.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Robert. Thanks. I think it was 3-4 years ago I hooked up with Robert, and we started writing songs together, and we released an album and an EP, 6-song EP, and I convinced him that maybe we could do a rock opera together. So that took some convincing because he had just written a musical by himself, and he was getting into some other projects. But I played him a song from the opera, and he was hooked. He was interested. So we went from there.
Yeah. So Malden holds a very special place in my heart. I've never lived here specifically, but my father lived here on Beltran Street when he was younger. And I have family members that still live here. Jeff Monroe runs a open mic every Wednesday at Hugh O'Neill's, and we're really close. He's my cousin. And anyway, there's a group here that I just hold very close to my heart, and I've spent a lot of time here. I was in a band a long time ago, and we used to practice in the basement of a house in Malden. So that was called Borrowed Time, and people from Malden were in it. So that's my Malden background, and
Strong ties
and this guy I know here in Malden. I went to college for performance, musical theater, communications. I went to Emerson College in Boston, and so at a very early age, I was always drawn to this genre. I just felt it was a wonderful way to communicate emotion and feeling and messaging in a way that went right to people's souls. And unfortunately, at that time, I think I started to get, I say unfortunately, but my mind went to, I want to be a pop singer, right? And so I sort of let go of the notion of musical theater and started writing pop songs. And only probably in the last few years came back to this love of the genre, and remembered why I grew up with it. I was in musicals growing up. I was, always imagined maybe doing that, but then I just let it go, and it's come back into my life over the last few years, and in earnest. So I've written a musical on my own, as Greg was talking about, and
I also
worked on this.
Let me interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
Not only does Robert sing, but he plays all the instruments, which is
All the instruments.
all the instruments.
Meaning violin,
woodwind,
cello.
everything.
Plugins and VST instruments are a wonderful thing. So no, I am performing all the instruments, and mostly through a MIDI piano, which nowadays you get wonderful sounds.
Absolutely.
But I also play guitar and bass and some other things. So
And he's not even credited for that, but we just didn't have room for his name. His name's just all over this, so we had to leave some of the stuff out.
yeah, great experience.
Wonderful. Well, you started, Greg, to share a little bit about how the idea for the rock opera came about. You kind of convinced Robert after having worked together. So tell me a little bit about kind of the journey, even beginning with you and how you came to want to do this project.
Macbeth has always been I've always had an affinity for the play. I'm not sure why. I just felt something about the character I connected to. I know that sounds very odd, but...
you mean to Macbeth himself?
Macbeth, the character. I was always fascinated with him because, Shakespeare created this assassin who had a conscience, which is just brilliant to me, and just what happens to him once he gets what he wants, and it was just a roller coaster of emotions, and it stayed with me. I was forced to read it in high school. I got through it. I think I got a B on the final grade, but I also studied it in college. So at Emerson,
you studied literature or Shakespeare in particular?
At Emerson College, I took a few courses about Shakespeare's tragedies and Shakespeare's comedies, and so I had another encounter with it. And I always felt that there's so much music here, with the trumpets blaring, and I always felt, well, we got to have some bagpipes, and I convinced Robert to incorporate some of those. Very tastefully done, I might add. We don't overdo it, but we got some AC/DC bagpipes in there, so kind of excited about that. But no one is singing in a Scottish accent, which Robert convinced me wasn't a very good idea.
So, did Macbeth stand out from Shakespeare's other tragedies, or was it?
It did. I mean, certainly I liked Romeo and Juliet, a very romantic story and very tragic. Hamlet, of course, but Macbeth was short. It's 5 acts, and we had to kind of part it down to 2, and so there's a lot left out. But we really have the bare bones of the story, and it's kind of exciting, actually. I think to attempt what we did. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased with what we've accomplished here, and I know that we got OSA to listen to it, which is a big ask because there's 22 songs.
I suspect other people will want to listen to it too.
Well, it's not like you get this band or this act, and you got to hear my song. Play somebody 3 of your best songs. We're trying to get people to listen to 2 acts of music here, and it's a big ask.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is important to note is all through the process, and early on, Greg would talk about how he wanted to make it more accessible to people. He wanted people to be able to kind of pare down what was really the theme and importance of the story and make it really accessible to people of all ages and make something relatable. And that stood out to me. There's things in it that we've cut. But when you really look at the through line of the story, it's all there, and it's put together in a methodical and I think brilliant way. And
Shakespeare's so rich, the language is, the imagery is so there's just so much of it that we had to really just pare it down and go with just a few images. It's as they say, Shakespeare's supposed to be experienced on the stage, and of course not everybody can afford to do that. So a lot of the kids, a lot of freshmen in high school, it might be tough to get through, and I think this, if they even read the Cliff Notes, they could listen to this because it's kind of a primer, and if anything, it is very faithful to the text, and I think it would bring people closer to the story.
Actually, I'm curious about why a rock opera, and is that sort of your genre, rock? Is that your background musically, and why did you choose a rock opera? Why is that in particular the best option in your mind?
You want to take this?
No, I think you should, because
I think you're talking too much. Actually.
No. Well, I'll start, and then you should jump in, because again, all through the process, one of our references was Jesus Christ Superstar, and I think that that. And again, I'm speaking a little bit for Greg, but I think it's important for you, Greg, to talk about it also, because it was the inspiration for a pure rock opera. Now, me personally, I wrote a musical that may stay on the shelf forever. It was a musical to the Truman Show, and it was all singing. It was an opera. Now, not opera like we traditionally know opera, but more like an Hamilton kind of opera, where it's singing and a little bit of words, but it's the through line is all music. And so that's another thing that drew me to this, is that's the kind of style I'm drawn to write. And so when he was talking about it, and I heard some of the demo tracks that him and John did, it took a bit, but once I started, it just flowed, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of neat. This is working. And it took me several songs to get through to like kind of commit beyond the first act, and it just sort of it came out naturally. So
Jesus Christ Superstar, I have to say, is really a template that we used. It was modeled after, and I have no qualms about that. It inspired what we're doing. We have 2 acts. It's just a terrific show, and Weber and Rice had a concept album first before it was ever staged, and so we kind of took a nod from them, and we thought, well, let's do that, because we certainly can't afford to stage it, and we don't have all these theater connections, but what we can do is we can present it in such a way that, hey, we can hand this to the band or the orchestra and say, look, we want you to play this. So even making CDs, I know nobody listens to CDs anymore, but it's a niche market and everything, but we wanted something physical to have in our hands to be able to show people, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah, I fought him on that a little bit. At least mentally I did, right? Like, why are we making CDs? I couldn't even remember the last time I listened to a CD. And then as soon as we had them in hand, I said, oh, I get it. Like, this makes some sense. Even if someone doesn't listen to it and they look at it, I mean, they can see what it is and the potential, and they might even
be intrigued enough to to listen.
So I'm curious how you set about the task of deciding how to compose the music for each of the songs, and how to use different melodies to express emotion. I mean, how collaborative was it? Was one person mostly focusing on the music or another person on the lyrics? And how did you collaborate and make decisions about what would go where?
That's a good question. Early on, it was just John and myself, and we got through most of the first act. We had some demos, some what I call primitive demos, and I would feed John the lyrics, and he would go off in another room, and I'd give him the lowdown on what was happening and the background of the scene and so forth, and he'd just go in another room and work it out and strum a guitar or bang on the keyboard, and that's how that
so
mostly
the lyrics
evolved.
came first, the words.
The lyrics came first,
and
if
the
you think,
ideas.
if you look up the word opera, it's actually the text of a play set to music. So not that you have to do it that way, but that's how the first act came about. And we had these demos, and they were sitting on a shelf for several years, and until we dusted them off, and I convinced Robert to get involved, and there was no demos for the second act, and so he took me on when I was supplying not only the lyrics but the most of the melodies for the songs, and the thing about Robert is he could have just said, no, I don't want anything to do with this, I'm not, but he was very gracious, and he thought, well, I'll honor what you and John did, and certainly he contributed to the rest of the opera. So it really was a very collaborative in that sense. And the thing about these two musician composers is they're very, very influenced by the Beatles. So I thought, this is great. I mean, they're just this is how they learned from listening to the Beatles, and they're really on the same page. And so I thought it was a really great team that we have.
Yeah.
The melodies are certainly Beatlesque, I think.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
But I guess you could argue that point.
Were there certain challenges, creative challenges, that you stumbled upon where it was a problem to solve, and how did you solve it?
Like together in the
Together,
collaboration?
Yes.
Maybe, I mean, so it took less than 30 days for the whole thing to come out. From the beginning of getting the first demo from Greg, and the way I work is, because I'm out there in the world working a full-time job, I'll get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, work 3 hours, go off to work. The weekends I'm down in my basement from 5 a.m. to when I'm in the middle of a project from 5 a.m. to 10 and working. And so I would do the song, and I'd send it to Greg, and he'd send me a new one, and we didn't get too involved and bogged down by the details as it was being birthed. And so
okay.
and it's funny, I didn't even really know the story, and I at that first 30 days I didn't want to know what was coming next. So he would send me the lyric, or send me the rough demo that him and John did, and I would spit out a song, and just to have, here's what's coming from me, here's what I'm hearing. So the first 30 days there was very little, I'd say, conflict on the collaboration, and then we get through that, and I start to get a little more familiar with the story, and we have back and forth. Well, what might be missing, or what might we need to add in the future, and a couple little things came out through that we added in, and so I think the collaboration went very well, but it wasn't without tension, and that's the way Greg and I have always worked, because
certainly
I know he believes. Yeah,
I'm impossible to work with. I'm jumping up and down about every word.
Well, no,
and it's just he's very patient.
Well, yeah. So, but the tension between us, I think, benefited us through this whole process. So we got through it in 30 days, and then the next what, 8 to 10 to 12, 11 months. Was,
You understand that this has been a year of,
Yeah, yeah.
of inhabiting these
yeah,
characters.
So we had to find singers. We had to, refine the music, etc. And so that through that whole process, it was intense. It was really intense.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and finding the right voice was a good challenge. A couple of times we had a few Lady Macbeths that we tried out, and we found the voice that was perfect for it. And she has musical background experience. She's been on. Her name's Laura Wright. I want to mention her. She was on American Idol when she was younger. She's out there singing. She does cruise.
Yep, and Vegas. She's a Vegas performer.
Wow.
Yeah, we were very lucky to get her because she's certainly one of the highlights of the. I think her voice is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And she sang Lady Macbeth.
She did. She did, and she
That evil
she
wife.
She didn't have any problem with it. So I think she had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, she did. She did a great job.
Yeah. So I wanted to also ask, are there certain parts of the opera for you personally that really get you every time you listen? Because I think every composer, every singer has some favorite that resonates, and maybe that changes. But I was curious for both of you to share a little bit about what of the selections in the opera really strike you and why.
I'll go first. There's a song, I think I mentioned this to Osa prior to the interview. There's a song called All My Pretty Ones, which is really just a heart-wrenching song, I think, that Macduff sings, and he just finds out that his family's been slaughtered. And he, as Shakespeare so magnificently pointed out, that he was going to avenge this as a man, but he would also have to feel it as a man. And there's just a couple of points in the song where he breaks down, and you really get that sense of, he just lost his family, and it's a very tragic thing. And it's very moving for me anyway. Every time I hear it.
Yeah.
He has no children. I will dispute it as a man, but I must also feel it as a man. Oh, my pretty one. Oh, my pretty one. Struck down instead of me. No fault of their own, my precious family. Oh, my pretty ones. Oh, my pretty ones.
All my pretty ones.
Yes.
He's referring to his children.
Yeah, for me, there's a couple. Pouring Rain has always stood out to me. That's immediately following the slaughtering of the king in Act 1. And it's a wonderful duet between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth.
Outside the storm, the pouring rain could not wash away the blood. Hands red with the stain, I cannot explain. The pouring rain, hands red with the stain of pouring rain.
My hands are of your color. Look, a little water clears us of this deed. It rinses away, it's all that we need.
Outside the storm, the pouring rain.
And then later in the second act, Lady Macbeth sings a song about having blood on her hands, and she's kind of seeing how all of her actions have led to this, and is feeling intense guilt. And I'd say that song is another one that really is striking and is different from all the others in that it's mostly just acoustic guitar.
Be gone, damn spot. Rinse away the odor, this foul scent. All the perfume in Arabia cannot sweeten these hands. He looks so much like my father, such a kind old man. To bed before it's too late. There's a knock.
The third one I would mention is Double Double, Toil and Trouble. For me, that is about as close as we get to traditional musical theater. I think that it has so much character and just a lot of character that is actually from the we call them Bohemian Sisters instead of witches, but a lot of that character is through Abby, who plays all three of them, and we do little differences with her voices to make that effect come through, that it's three different people. And she's actually from South Africa, so we actually have a few international people singing on it. So pretty wild. But that song strikes me, and I mean there's a couple others, but those are the main ones, I think.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails throw, eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of a dog, lizard's leg and owlet's wing, beak of martlet, no more shall sing, root of hemlock, dug up in the dark, guts and stomach of a ravenous shark, for a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boil and bubble.
And then I think when we knew we were onto something, at least I felt like we were onto something, was a song called "If We Should Fail," and it's a duet, and you have Macbeth and Lady Macbeth going back and forth, and through the production of the music and that relationship, I just felt that was very unique and stands out to me. So
Yeah.
It's a very disturbing
Very
thing to
disturbing.
hear,
Yep.
planning to kill the king.
Kill the king.
You know.
And
Yep.
she didn't really answer his question in that song, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yeah. She kind of forces him.
Yes.
Forces him to it at the very
Right.
end. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it's clear in A Dangerous Thing that he makes up his mind. He's not going to do it. And then she convinces him in the next song that it's got to be done. It's got to be done now.
We shall proceed no further in this business. I am his host, he is our guest.
I can hardly believe these words you speak. My admiration has reached its peak. That letter you sent here, how it did impress. I should have known all along. I should have guessed.
We had better think this out. Perhaps we're rushing in. Have you taken into account certain factors and small details? Unanswered questions like if we should fail. Unanswered questions like if we should fail.
Do not shrink from your purpose. Panic or look so pale. Listen once again to what my plan entails. The king is lightly guarded, only 2 attendant grooms. I've already drugged the wine delivered to the room. They will sleep soundly tonight, careless of their charm.
His first line, "We shall proceed no further in this business." I am his host. He is our guest. I mean, that's the first line of that song. And the very next song, he's killing the king. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, I want to mention the very last song is called Requiem for a Tyrant. There's not even any words in it. But, you know, it's an instrumental, and it's really just this funeral dirge that makes you feel something for the, you know, anti-hero that we have, Macbeth, and that gets me every time hearing that. It's just not bring a tear to my eye, but something's happening. I feel something, because you feel something for this guy. And, you know, he made a really bad judgment, and his life was just turned upside down, and it's just, I thought Robert did a wonderful job with that, because what he did was he took a dangerous thing, and you hear that song kind of slowed down and well referenced. It's almost like a reprise, but it's very, very cleverly done. It's not blatant. I mean, it's there, but it's not. You can hear it. Why don't you describe it?
Yeah, I basically took Dangerous and I Have the Time, and I just made it very open and wide. And I mean, so much, I don't even think you recognized it your first listen. And
that's a true story.
And I didn't want it to be so recognizable, but to me, you know, Dangerous is, I think, one of the main themes of the whole show.
Absolutely.
And this is where it's all led. And that's the you know, that's the dangerous part of everything, and it led to his death. I wanted that to come in as a theme at the end.
And I wanted to mention real quick the Wayward Sisters, because, you know, our Wayward Sisters aren't the traditional, you know, old hags with the black hats. You know, they're time traveling bohemian women from the 70s that are into spirit cooking and, you know, medicinal herbs, if you will. And we had a lot of fun with it. So they're actually younger voices that you hear, and it's just a supernatural event that happens. And if I don't want to give away too much here, but the brilliance of Shakespeare is how does he show what's going on in Macbeth's mind? What does he do? He projects these three wayward sisters who cast a spell, and you know exactly what's going on in his mind. That's how clever it was. You know, my belief anyway that was what was done there. So it's
so
just
in other words, they understand what's in his mind, but from his perspective, they're prophesying what is going to happen.
Correct.
But that may not really be what's going on. What's going on is they understand what's in his mind, and somehow he believes otherwise, or...
Well, I think there's some truth to that, but Banquo's also hearing it, so so there's a little rub there. But I'm just convinced that was what he was doing, and it was just psychological and just so just a master playwright to just be able to do that.
and the way they are manipulating him, I mean, they cause everything to happen. So.
Right. So I was going to ask if you think, from your perspective, these three women, bohemian women, are evil.
He's the Shakespeare expert, so I don't.
Well, certainly there's they're dabbling in satanic things, and there's definitely I say this a lot. I get in trouble, but it's not that it's a Christian play, but there's a lot of Christian elements in it, and Shakespeare put them there. He's well versed in the Bible, and how do you explore evil? Well, you have to talk about the opposite of evil, and so you have those opposites going, and so there definitely represents some evil, and but I really feel like it's a moral. There's a moral to the story, and it is a morality play. The fall of man. There's so many parallels you could talk about. It's that's my belief anyway. Everyone has their opinion, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could, it's all open for interpretation. That's the wonderful thing about Shakespeare, and again, I definitely wasn't well versed in this at all, and the more I read it, I was seeing kind of the beauty in the text. Whether it's projections in his mind, whether it's his, really what's whether they're real, whether they're controlled by evil, whether they're just prophets potentially. I'm not quite sure, what I believe, but they certainly don't feel evil. They really feel like they're prophesizing, but also manipulating. So,
yeah. Well, it makes me think too of the concept that all humans really often set out to prove themselves right by who they talk to. So most people aren't looking to be proven wrong. So oftentimes we associate with people who are like-minded, so they're going to affirm what we already believe. So
absolutely.
That's certainly a principle of human nature, which maybe Shakespeare is portraying through, these external beings.
Yeah.
Because they're telling him everything he wants to hear.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't he confide in them?
Yep.
I wanted to talk a little bit about emotion and what you see as the importance of feeling things that should be felt. And music does that so powerfully, and I think some of the pieces are just really powerful to draw out the emotion of the situation. But in our society, how do you hope that something like your rock opera can help people to feel things? I mean, about this story, but then it's also so relevant to real life in so many ways.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. It was one of the things I struggled with, or I've been struggling with over the last several months, is you look at a show like this and you go, well, okay, where is the light? Where is the hope? Where is the peace? Where is the upliftment? And personally, those are things that I always strive for in what I work on. So for me, I sort of had to get my head around, okay, well, this is different. And so what do I do musically to capture people's hearts? To you listen to music, either you're going to connect with it or you're not. So how do we make it so that the music is connecting with people even beyond the story? Because if you can grab someone with the music, it's going to make them it easier to hear the story because they're going to be connected with it internally. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So musically, in terms of the instruments, in terms of the notes, in terms of the progressions, I think it's all important to open up the feeling in someone. But your question is poignant because how do you find hope in something like this? And Shakespeare's tragedies, there's not much hope to be found. It's more lessons. And I think that's what I had to focus on was, okay, what is the lesson to be learned here? How can I personally relate at a micro level to power, wanting power, or not, maybe let's not even use the word power, to wanting something that is, maybe a little bit for me, me. And so, I mean, I could give examples, but like, that's how I had to, I guess, relate to it and relate to him, like symbolically in myself. What does it mean? How do I relate? How do I do this in my life? So that's kind of how I related, and with the other characters. And you're looking at someone like Banquo who wants to stand up to the darkness. It was his friend who's now dark. How do you stand up to that? How do you stand up to someone that wants to kill you? What happened to Macduff? Him standing up to him at the end. And I know we don't want to do spoilers, but I think it's all important. So you look for the hope in the story of the people that are the light. But again, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I think a lot of the emotion for me came from the strings.
The strings, yeah.
Because Robert, not only is it pop rock that you're listening to, and I think it's very soulful in terms of the vocals, but when Robert's playing the cello and the violins, I mean, they just really grab you.
Life's but a walking shadow, a poor play that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. His tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Moving forward into the future, your hope is to stage this opera and to is that right?
Yeah, I think
that's correct. That's the next step.
The next step would be to see it visually, see what works. See, because you
workshop
it. See what works. See what needs tweaking. See how the story flows, because it's very different listening and viewing. I think it's even going to get clearer when it can be viewable. Especially because not everybody follows music and lyrics the same way as others. Some can lock right onto it. Some are just going to pay attention to the music, and that's the way I was growing up. So being able to see it visually will bring it to the next level.
I'm excited. Sure. I can't wait to see the opera.
Yeah.
So we're going to do everything we can in our power to make that happen. That's one of the reasons we're here. 'Cause we're trying to get some exposure and certainly create a buzz about this. And if there's a local theater company that's interested in taking on the Thane of Cawdor and us, because it's just we're excited because as you know, the theater is a very collaborative thing, and you've got costumes, you've got choreography, all kinds of fun. We want it. We've got some feelers out there locally, and we're trying to get people to listen and have the same vision that we have, and I don't see a problem with that. I think we made this happen.
Yeah.
So, and that was a year. So I told Robert we got to do this in 6 months. We got to get this. We got to get this on the stage within the next 6 months, and I think that's reasonable. That we could do that. And we're making connections.
Well, I'm sure our listeners will be keeping watch for the next chapter of this wonderful
who's doing
project.
rock opera? Tell me, who's from Malden? Who's doing rock opera? It's us. We're it.
Thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
From the battle, still my vision very keen. Seems strange, it's not day or night, but somewhere in between. Do you see those figures in the mist? 1, 2, no 3. Wayward sisters in the mist.
Are you supernatural? Answer me.
Oh, hail Macbeth, hail Macbeth of Glamis, hail to thee. Oh, hail Macbeth. shall